Well, hello, my bookish friends. How are you guys doing? I'm hoping that the beginning of 2025 is treating you well. Let's do a book haul for today. It's been a long time since I've done a book haul, and it's only because I felt like I'm buying the books faster than I can read them, which is fine because I've made room in my house with all my 10 bookcases, 9 that I have. I made room for books so I can have books that I haven't read on my shelf. So I can just, when I'm in the mood, okay, because I am very much a mood reader. When I'm in the mood, I can just go through my shelves and find something to read. So I stopped doing book hauls because I really do shop faster than I read. But since, it was just Christmas and it's the new year, maybe we can, start off with a book haul. So I got a book for Christmas. I have not started it yet, but I'm looking forward to it. I read a book last year, the year before, in 2023, The Sword of Kaigan by M.L. Wong, and I loved it. It was a 5-star read for me. So this is her next book. It's called Blood Over Bright Haven. I know, there's a bit of a glare. It's got sprayed edges. This is, I think, my first book with sprayed edges. So it was originally independently published at Amazon, but it's been picked up by a publisher now. So my husband bought this for me. We saw it in Target one day, and I'm like, I really need to have that because it's the same person who wrote The Sword of Kaigan. I hear this is really good. So it'll be science fiction / fantasy. Probably more fantasy than science fiction, but I got that for Christmas. And I have been out to the thrift store, which is my one place I love to shop for books, is the thrift store, because you can get a little bit of everything. So I got a stack here of 8 books. Okay, ready? There we go. 8 books. All right, from a place called Good Stuff Thrift. Soft covers and paperbacks are $1.50. Hardcovers are $2.50. I have Shadow Fallen by Sherilyn Kenyon. And she writes what used to be called paranormal romance. And it still is. Actually, Barnes & Noble has a category. It says paranormal romance. So think paranormal, supernatural, science fiction, fantasy, okay? And it's romance. And I'm a big fan of Sherilyn Kenyon. She is my guilty pleasure. When I read her books, I totally forget about the outside world, and I really get immersed into them. I like her writing style. I like her characters. I like her plot lines. What I'm trying to say is, although hopefully there's an edit there, I like Sherilyn Kenyon. I like the way she writes paranormal romance, and it's a guilty pleasure of mine. And there's a series of books she has called the Dark Hunter series, and this is like book number 30. And I've already read it, so there'll be a video on that soon, hopefully. So it was my first read of 2025. I really do enjoy these books. Okay, so that's Shadow Fallen. All right. Next, I got Una Out of Order by Margarita Montemor. Margarita Montemor. Una Out of Order. So this is science fiction fantasy. Una, that's the character's name. It's a girl in the book. We see her on the eve of her birthday. So she's a New Year's baby. So we see her for the first time on December 31st. 1982, and when the clock strikes midnight, she time travels. So she doesn't get to turn 19 years old. When she time travels, she lands in her 51-year-old body. Right? So it's just her consciousness that is time traveling. So the book is light on the time travel, so it's light on the fantasy. They refer to it as time sickness, but they don't go into any details on how it happens to her. So for 7 years, we are following Una as she every year on New Year's at midnight into the new year, she jumps into a different part in her own timeline. So like the second chapter is or the third chapter, where she's 20 years, she turns 20 years old, but she lands in her 27-year-old body. When she's 21, she lands in her 40-year-old body. When she's 22, she lands in her 39-year-old body. When she's 23, she lands in her 31-year-old body. Until the last chapter, when she finally, at 26 years old, makes it back into her 19-year-old body. So we follow her through these, where she spends 1 year completely out of sync with her own timeline. And it's how she navigates and how she thinks about trying to fix things in the past so her future would be better. But things wound up happening just the same way that they always did. So the whole thing about, is it fate, or do we have any kind of control over our lives? So while I'm a big science fiction fan, I love science in my books, okay? It was really light on it, but I still enjoyed reading it anyway. So yeah, this was my second book of 2025. I've already read this one too. My goal is to read this whole stack of books that I bought on January 2nd. I would like to read this whole stack of books before I move on to my next stack. So I read Una Out of Order by Margarita Montemor, and I really enjoyed it. I did. It was interesting, and it reminds me of The Time Traveler's Wife, which was a book before it was a movie. And then a TV show from the 80s, I want to say in the 80s, called Quantum Leap. Very reminiscent of that. Alright, so next in my stack of books is Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. I picked this one up because I joined a book club through an app called Fable. And one of the booktubers that I watch is starting a book club to try to get people to read out of a genre that they would typically read in. So the first book they did was Howl's Moving Castle, which I've already read that 3 times already. The second book was The Nutcracker by E.T.A. Hoffman for December, which I've already read that too. So for January, the choice is Hamnet. And it says a novel of the plague, so it's going to be historical fiction. England, 1850, the Black Death, and then from about Shakespeare's life, okay? So I'm going to be reading this one soon for a book club. Next I've got Severance by Ling Ma, and it's a very pink cover. My camera is showing it a little darker than it really is. This is horror, I think, and apocalyptic. The back, it just has a bunch of blurbs on it. New York Times book review. So I think other booktubers that I watch have read it, and it's something about an apocalypse that happens. Something like a zombie apocalypse, but not quite. Dark humor, satire. So yeah, okay. After the end came the beginning, and in the beginning there were 8 of us, then 9, that was me, a number that would only decrease. We found another one after fleeing New York for the safer pastures of the countryside. So I'll have to let you know when I finally get into it. Okay, I think I'm going to read this stack of books in order, from smallest to the largest. So if you guys have read Severance, let me know down in the comments below. Next, I have Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. Now, I hear that Octavia E. Butler is a really good author, and I think she's considered classic at this point. I think her books were published a long time ago, and this is book 1 of 2. The Earthseed books. Book 2 is Parable of the Talents. Again, a booktuber that I watch recommended it. 1993. Sorry, a lot of these books are physically, they're new to me, so I'm flipping through them as I'm trying to talk to you. So I think this is dystopian, I want to say. When global climate change, economic crisis lead to a social chaos in the early 2020s, California becomes full of dangers, water shortage. A 15-year-old Lauren lives inside a gated community, sheltered from the surrounding anarchy. She must make her voice heard in order to protect her loved ones from imminent disasters that her small community stubbornly ignores. I don't know. I'll have to let you know when I get to it. Alright, next I've got The Book of Speculation by Erica Swiler, plus a bonus short story inside. I have no idea what this is about, but it's got the word book in the title, and it's got a stack of books on the cover. That's why I picked this one up. Came across this book at auction as part of a larger lot I purchased on speculation. The damage renders it useless to me, but a name inside of it led me to believe it might be of interest to you or your family. One day, a mysterious old book arrives on Simon's doorstep in Long Island Sound, filled with elaborate script, sketches, and whimsical flourishes. It tells of doomed lovers and generations of circus mermaids who have drowned, just like Simon's mother, on July 24th, which is just weeks away. So, with the help of a friend, they go to investigate if there's a curse on the family, and they're looking for secrets hidden inside this fantastical book. A book about a book. Yeah, alright. You have to forgive me for the lighting. I'm sitting in between two windows. This one's super bright. Well, that one's got a bit of a yellow tone to it, but it's the best place I could sit to do this. Alright, so book number 7 in my stack of books from early January is Chosen Ones by Veronica Roth. Now, Veronica Roth wrote Divergent, and I love the Divergent series. I love the movies. Tris, 4 is my favorite character. As tortured as he is, he's my favorite character. So this is a completely different series called Chosen Ones, and it is about 5 ordinary teenagers were singled out by a prophecy to take down an impossibly powerful entity wreaking havoc across North America. He was known as the Dark One. And these teenagers battled the Dark One, and they won, and now this is their lives 15 years later, and something has started to happen to them. So, is there another one in this series? Not as far as this says so far. So, Chosen Ones by Veronica Roth. I'll let you know when I get to that one, if it's any good. Or if I think it's any good. And remember, just their opinions. My opinions. Y'all can go read a book if you decide you want to read a book. Don't let anybody else tell you you shouldn't read a book because it was crappy. Because it might have been crappy to them, but it might be good for you. So the biggest book in the bottom of this stack is how many pages? 892 pages. Alright. It says, the Archimedes engine, Exodus, Become the Traveler. Okay, so Archimedes is probably the name of a series. Exodus is the name of the book, and is written by Peter F. Hamilton. Now, from what I understand, Peter F. Hamilton writes sci-fi, and I love sci-fi. And it's got some kind of spaceship design on the front of it. And it says, Become the Traveler. The one thing Finn promised himself was that under no circumstances would he ever scream. He wasn't going to give his captors the satisfaction. So he remained silent as a sharp knife sliced through his soiled one-piece thermal regulator undersuit, grating his teeth every time the blade nicked his skin. Nor did he flinch. That's just telling what happened to Finn. Alright, so let's read the inside flap. Let's see if that'll tell us something different. 40,000 years ago, humanity fled a dying Earth. Traveling in massive ark ships, these brave pioneers spread out across the galaxy to find a new home. After traveling thousands of light years, one fleet of ark ships arrived at Centauri, a dense cluster of stars with a vast array of potentially habitable planets. The survivors of Earth signaled to the remaining ark ships that humanity had finally found a new home among the stars. Thousands of years later, the Centauri cluster has flourished. The original settlers have evolved into advanced being known as Celestials. Okay, so people fled Earth, found a new solar system to settle in, and flourished. So yeah, okay. Sorry, I sneezed. So it is book 1 of the Archimedes engine duology. Now I found it in my thrift store for $2.50. said it was published in 2024, so it's a new book. And let's see, 2000 AD, 2200 AD, Exodus, 2200, Dawn Era, 18,000 AD. Okay, so it's 42,000 AD. Can you imagine living in the year 42,350 when we're only in 2025? It's what I love about science fiction on spaceships and distant galaxies and planets. The potential. But also, sci-fi also has a tendency to be very big because it's world building. But I love that too. So there we go. I have a stack of 8 books. I've already read 2 out of 8. I will be doing videos on them. I realize I need to do videos when I read the books and not like a monthly wrap-up or review, because a lot of times the books, they just go straight out of my head when I'm done reading them. I hardly retain anything unless a book is a completely 5-star book, like let's go with Douglas Adams and The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I still remember that 20 years later. Tolkien and The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, I can remember that. So like some stuff you can remember, but typically the popcorn books, you eat them, they're digestible, and then they're gone, you know. So this was my book haul from the thrift store on the 2nd of January, and Blood Over Brighthaven was a Christmas gift. So that's 9 books sitting here in my stack, and out of the 9, I've read 2 so far, and it's getting me out of my reading slump, which I really do appreciate. Random books in a stack from the thrift store to help get me out of my reading slump. So if you've watched this long, you know, if you watched my last video, I was changing my channel name again. But it turns out there are a lot of women out there born in the 70s, even in the 80s, that have the name of Jenny. So I went with Jennie and the Books, because there's this one booktuber I watch. His name is Tristan, and he does his channel's about reading classics, and I enjoy his enthusiasm and his passion for books, and the name of his channel is Tristan and the Classics. So I went with Jennie and the Books, okay? And then I realized later when I said it out loud to myself, I'm like, Benny and the Jets, Jennie and the Books. But I won't sing to you anymore, okay? So there we go. That is my first book haul of the year, and I'm hoping to do more videos going forward, so thank you all for being very patient with me. I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye!